Hey guys, it's Courtney and I'm here with another project using Trinity stamps. Today I'm going to be making a square card with the hopeful flowers as well as the sentiment from Let Love Grow. I'm starting off with a piece of cardstock here and I'm going to be using my Misty. This is the best way to position this, but you can certainly do it with an acrylic block. I'm just taking this one image from the Hopeful Flower stamp set and positioning that in one of the corners of a piece of navy cardstock, and this is cut down to 4¼ by 4¼ I used my anti-static tool and I'm going to be stamping this with Versamark ink, and I'll turn this 180 degrees and stamp this in another corner. Now you can certainly turn this 4 times, but I found that it didn't really match up perfect. So I repositioned it again into one of those corners, stamped that again with the Versamark ink and flipped it 180 degrees and did that one more time. I'm going to be heat embossing this with Wow embossing powder. This is the gold pearl. It's gold naturally, but it's a little less metallic, I guess. It's more of a pearly gold, exactly what the name says, I guess. And I'm gonna just take a paintbrush, a dry paintbrush that I usually keep on hand specifically for this reason. I had some stray embossing powder there, and I'll just brush that away before I take my heat gun to the cardstock. Now I did go ahead and heat up my heat tool for about 30 seconds or so before actually bringing it to the paper. This will minimize the warping, especially being I am pretty much heat embossing this entire panel, or at least all 4 corners. And once I had that heat set, we're going to move on to the coloring, or the painting, I guess you could say. And I'm going to be using Perfect Pearls to do a little bit of watercoloring, I guess you could call it. And I know we probably all have Perfect Pearls in our stash, and I've had mine for so many years that I like to bring out some older materials that I've had for a while. So I'm working on a Ranger craft mat over here, and I just took a little bit of this pink color onto my craft mat, added a couple of drops of water, and just mix that together. You can use any paintbrush here, but it does help if you have a pretty small point on this. I would say this is like one of those cheap paintbrushes, but I'd say this is probably like a number 2 brush. Next, I'm just taking one image at a time and just dropping in my color. Now you have the embossed areas to kind of keep this in one place and so it doesn't seep out of the image, but also keep in mind that this is not watercolor paper, so you don't want to add too much. You just kind of want to drop the color in there and let it melt. Now you'll see it kind of beating up a little bit, and that's fine too. It dries pretty quickly, probably just as quick as if we were doing this on watercolor paper. I just like the look of it on like a darker cardstock. It looks great on black cardstock as well. So you'll see here that I just kind of go around my card panel here, color in the same flowers on each image with the same color. So I colored the same 2 flowers on each image with the pink. Then we'll move on to this orangish color. Some of them are labeled with what the name of the color is. Some of them are not. This is Marigold. I don't know what the pink is. I think it came in like a set of 4 and it was not labeled with a name. So I'm doing the same thing with this, mixing this with a little bit of water and kind of just dropping that in to the embossed areas of some of those flowers. Then we'll move on to the next color, and this color is labeled too. This is called Mint. And again, just taking the handle of my paintbrush, so the other end of my paintbrush, and that's what I use to kind of scoop a little bit out. You do not need a lot. These last forever, which is why I've had them for so many years. You just need a tiny little bit and just 2 or 3 drops of water to mix that in. Once I had my mint color flowers all colored in, I'll move on to a green and doing this the same way. Now, any image or any part of the image, if you're not sure what flower it belongs to, especially once you emboss it because you lose some of those lines, just color them in green. Nobody's going to know that it's not a leaf. If you color it green, people are going to think it's a leaf. So I did go ahead and finish up all of my coloring here and put my panel aside to dry just for a few minutes before we actually put the card together. And next I will go ahead and take that happy birthday from the Let Love Grow stamp set. And I'm going to be stamping this right here in the center of my card panel. I will bring back my anti-static tool. Now I let this dry for maybe about 5 minutes, thinking that was sufficient enough. It was not. So you'll notice that in the corner, in the top right-hand corner, I smeared some of that perfect pearl around. You may not see it here. I didn't see it here. I didn't notice it until later, but we'll find a way to fix that as well. I use that same gold pearl embossing powder for my sentiment and heat set that. And my card base is 4.5 by 4.5. So this is a small card and it is a square card. I also took a panel of, it's kind of like a peachy, pinky color, and I don't know where this is from. It was from my scrap bin. And I cut that down to just slightly larger than my card panel itself. So just a little bit more than 4.25 by 4.25. I adhered my panel with my Tombow Mono multi glue to that panel, and that's when I realized I had smeared some of that shimmer around. So I figured if it is still wet, I might be able to pick some of that up with just some clean water. I took a damp paintbrush, put some water on there. I didn't have a paper towel handy, so I used my shirt. And most of it came up, but it still left behind the shimmer. It didn't leave behind the color, just the shimmer itself. So in order to kind of let that blend in a little bit, I ended up taking a shimmer spray. And I did this off camera because I have like a scrap box that I keep off to the side for sprays. But I ended up spraying the entire panel and letting that dry. That way that shimmer wouldn't stick out. Next, I adhered those two panels onto my card base. Again, this is 4.5 by 4.5 with just a small white border there. Now you can see where some of my shimmer spray kind of globbed out a little bit. In order to cover that up, I'm just using some Clear Nouveau drops, and I'll scatter those drops around to cover those areas up. And that is it for today's card. Thank you guys so much for stopping by, and I hope you guys have a wonderful day. Bye.